Just to give you an idea, from our Monomial Factoring Day 1 video, this is what the very first problem should look like. You should have distributed the y through the parentheses and the negative 5y through the parentheses, and that yields this. And then when you combine your like terms and put it in standard form, you have y squared minus 5y squared. That's negative 4y squared. Don't forget there's a 1 in front of this. So 1 minus 5 is negative 4. And 3y plus 10y is 13y. This is two terms, which makes it a binomial. That's just free. That's free information I'm giving you. But the degree is the largest exponent on a variable, and that degree is 2, and that's quadratic, because remember, quad in Latin means square, and that's y squared. So that just gives you an idea about what 1, 2, 3, and 4 should look like. So let's finish out this lesson. First thing that we need to do is find the greatest common factor of the terms of a polynomial. So what is that? That's the largest factor that divides evenly, and it's the biggest one. Now sometimes we factor and we find a common factor, but we don't use the largest one. The largest one makes things easier for us. If your math facts are pretty good, your multiplication facts, that shouldn't be a real big deal. So if we want to find the greatest common factor of 4x to the 4th y plus 8x cubed y, we want to first look at the 4 and the 8, plain old, and it's positive 8, plain old coefficients. The largest number that divides into both 4 and 8 is 4. Now we have x to the 4th and x cubed. The largest power of x that divides into both of those would be x cubed. What you're really thinking is, some people just think to themselves that it's the smallest exponent. That's true. I tend to think, what's the largest exponent of x, largest power of x, that will divide into both of them? X cubed. And then we've got a y to the first here and y to the first there. So this right here is our greatest factor. And for this one right here, same general process. We've got 2 and 10, positive 10, and negative 6. What divides each one of those? 2 does. 2 is the largest number that divides 2 and 10 and negative 6. And do each of them have an x term? Yes, they each have a value, or a power of x. What's the largest one that will go into all three of them? Well, that's x to the first. We can't do x to the 4th, because if we try to divide x to the 4th into x squared, we're going to have something in the denominator. We don't want that. So some people call it the smallest exponent, or the largest one that will divide into all of them, and that is 2x. So this is our greatest common factor. Now we use that to factor polynomials. For the rest of this unit, it's nice if you always look for a greatest common factor first. But sometimes we make a mistake and forget. We'll show you how to take care of that. Looking at this, 20 and negative 10. What divides both 20 and negative 10? Well, 10 does. And then we've got u squared and u to the first, so we want u to the first. And then we have v to the first and v squared. That gives us v. So now what I want you to do is take this 10uv, because this time we're not just finding the greatest common factor, although that is it. That part is the greatest common factor. We want to pull this out of each of those terms. So when I say pull that out, we are dividing both of these terms by 10uv. So when we look at this, 20 divided by 10, inside here we should have 2 terms, by the way, because we started with 2 terms. 20 divided by 10 is 2. U squared divided by u to the first is u. And v to the first divided by v to the first is just 1. So we aren't going to write that down, since we can write times 1. That would yield 2u. Minus 10 divided by 10 is 1. U to the first divided by u is 1. And v squared divided by v, that's v. So this is what it looks like factored. You do need to have that greatest common factor there. Moving on to the next problem. First, we want to find our greatest common factor. The greatest common factor is going to be, let's see, 4 and negative 8 and negative 2. We want to factor a 2 out of there. Then we have x to the 4th, x cubed, and x squared. X squared goes into each one of those. Then we have a y to the 1st here, a y to the 1st there, and no y there. That means y is not a part of our greatest common factor. So this right here is the GCF. And here, 2x squared, and we're going to divide this by 2x squared, and we're going to divide this by 2x squared. Each term gets divided by 2x squared. 4 divided by 2 is 2. X to the 4th divided by x squared is x squared. And then we have a y here and no y's down there. We're just going to keep that y right there. Minus 8 divided by 2, which is 4. X cubed divided by x squared, which is x. And again, we have a y right here. So we got a y right there. Minus 2 divided by 2 is 1. X squared divided by x squared is 1, and 1 times 1 is 1. That is the factored polynomial. You could check this by dividing, or by multiplying through, by distributing, and seeing that you get the original polynomial. You probably have enough information now to finish page 6 from the homework. You should have enough information to be able to finish this. But I am going to continue and do these last 2 examples, so follow along with me if you need a little bit more reinforcement. So here we're looking at 2, 10, and negative 6. We have a 2 that divides into both 2 and positive 10 and negative 6. We have x to the 4th, x squared, and x to the 1st. So that's 2x. Then that's our GCF. That's our greatest common factor. And I don't even think I made a mistake. Divide this by 2x, divide that by 2x, divide that by 2x. So now, 2 divided by 2 is 1. Make this a little bit bigger. 2 divided by 2 is 1. You could write that one there if you wanted to. You would if these canceled, but they don't. X to the 4th divided by x to the 1st is x cubed. 10 divided by 2 is positive 5. X squared divided by x to the 1st is x. Negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. X to the 1st divided by x to the 1st is times 1. We don't have to write that down. So this is the polynomial once it has been factored, once the GCF has been factored out. And if you wanted to check, you do 2x times x cubed, that gives you 2x to the 4th. 2x times 5x gives you 10x squared, and 2x times negative 3 gives you negative 6x. Last one, when we have a negative on our leading term, it's my recommendation that you factor a negative value out. In the long run, it does work out better for you to do that. So we've got a negative 4, a positive 12, and a negative 16. 4 goes into all of those, so I am going to factor out a negative 4. We've got x cubed, x squared, and x. So that the largest one that divides all 3 of those is x to the 1st. You can put a 1 there if you want to. We have a y here, and nothing there, so this is our greatest common factor. Again, I factored a negative out because my leading coefficient was negative. There are actually 2 correct answers, and I'll show you the other one in just a minute. So we divide this by negative 4x, divide this by negative 4x, and divide the last term by negative 4x. And what that gives us is negative 4 divided by negative 4 is 1. X cubed divided by x is x squared. 12 divided by negative 4 is negative 3. X squared divided by x is x, and I is still there. Negative 16 divided by negative 4 is positive 4. X divided by x is 1, so I can write times 1, but when I simplify it, I get 4. So that is the polynomial factored. Don't forget, you have to have a GCF as part of that. Also, if you did not factor out a negative 4x, it's not going to be wrong, but Sometimes it works, actually most times it works out better for you if you do factor out a negative. If you factored out a positive 4x, the answer would be negative x squared y plus 3xy minus 4. The red answer is my favorite, but the pink one is fine. Okay, you have what you need to complete page 6.